families here at home. Thank you. The council would join me on the dais for a special presentation for two our guests we have tonight. So everyone may have seen we had a parade this past Sunday. It was a little chilly, but we still had a parade nonetheless. Having parades at the beginning of March is probably not the smartest thing to do weather-wise, but this was the 44th, and it went off really well. And I want to thank and recognize the president of the Belmar Lake Como St. Patrick's Day Parade Committee, Chip Kavanaugh. Chip, can you stand up? And I'd like to bring up this year's Grand Marshal and Deputy Grand Marshal. The Grand Marshal is also the mayor of Manasquan, Eddie Donovan. And the Deputy Grand Marshal, Miriam Sherry. Everyone clap out. So, honoring the 2017 St. Patrick's Day Parade, Grand Marshal and Deputy Grand Marshal. Whereas the annual Belmar Lake Como St. Patrick's Day Parade is on March 5th, 2017, and whereas the Belmar Lake Como St. Patrick's Day Parade, Grand Marshal Edward Donovan and Deputy Grand Marshal Miriam Sherry led this historic event down Main Street in Belmar, and whereas Grand Marshal Ed Donovan and Deputy Grand Marshal Miriam Sheridan have demonstrated consistent and admirable service to Belmar and Lake Como and the Irish community, and whereas the Belmar Lake Como St. Patrick's Day Parade marks this time-honored Belmar tradition and the honoring of our Irish heritage, the selection of Edward Donovan and Miriam Sheridan as Grand and Deputy Grand Marshal for the parade celebrate the strength and honor of Belmar's Irish leaders, and whereas the Borough of Belmar wishes to recognize Grand Marshal Ed Donovan and Deputy Grand Marshal Miriam Sheridan for their service to the borough and the Irish community, now therefore be it resolved that the mayor and members of the governing body hereby extend on behalf of all residents sincere congratulations for their designation and service as Grand and Deputy Grand Marshal of the historic Belmar Lake Como St. Patrick's Day Parade. Mayor, would you like to say a few words to...
No.
We've spoken off.
Mayor, you want to say anything?
No.
Thank
you.
Your husband, John?
Oh, no, because nobody will get out of
He doesn't have lost words.
You won't have a meeting.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely.
It was a great parade, it really went off very well, thanks to Chip Kavanaugh and the Belmar Lake Como St. Patrick's Day Parade Committee. Brian Wilton wants to change it to Lake Como Belmar St. Patrick's Day Parade because it starts there. So they will let us start there next year. No, but it was a great day, and thanks to everybody who came out and supported it. The weather held up, and it was a lot of fun and a great honor. Thanks.
Yes, it was.
Thank you. Congratulations again.
Yeah.
He's used to speaking. He's the mayor. Thank you so much.
All righty, council. Back to our regular schedule. Thanks. Next are public bids. Our attorney will take over.
Borough will now hold the public bid or auction for a Zumba lesson concession at the Taylor Pavilion. The area to be leased is a portion of the Taylor Pavilion for Zumba classes subject to the terms and conditions of the lease, which has been and is on file and available for inspection at the municipal clerk's office here at 601 Main Street in Belmar during regular business hours. All bidders or potential bidders were advised to inspect the lease and should inspect the lease prior to bidding. The lease shall be made to the highest bidder by open public bidding at auction, which will occur in just a moment. The minimum acceptable bid would be $500. That will be the starting bid. A bid deposit of $250 had to be submitted no later than prior to the beginning of the public auction, which is about to happen in just a moment. If you have not submitted your bid deposit yet, please do so to the clerk at this time. And by the way, the bid deposit had to be by cash, money order, or certified bank check. The deposit will be a credit toward the lease rent in favor of the successful bidder, and is taken off the bid price. The term of the lease is from May 1st, 2017 through September 30th, 2017, and is subject again to the terms and conditions of the lease. The Borough Council reserves the right to, in any event, reject the highest bid, and if the highest bid is rejected, to reject all bids. All those wishing to bid, please come forward and state your name, address, and business name for the record. And if you have not done so already, please give the Borough Clerk your bid bond.
I am Michelle DiCarlo of DiCarlo Fitness, 710 10th Avenue in Belmar.
I'll take that for you. Thank you. Any other bidders?
Any other bidders? With that, we will start the bidding at $500.
Don't go anywhere, don't go anywhere.
Yes, please stay here. If anyone else wishes to bid, please go up now. In that case, we'll start the bidding at $500. Starting bid is $500. Is there anyone wishing to bid $500? Mr. Carlo, $500. Is there anyone willing to bid higher than $500? Seeing none, going once, going twice, and sold to Mr. Carlo at the bid of $500.
Congratulations, Michelle.
Thank you.
The whole council will be up there doing Zumba with you.
Oh,
Mark Walker's going to lead us. Why is that funny?
thank you.
Mayor and Council, at this time, we will be opening public bids for the 5th Avenue Pavilion concession and the 10th Avenue building concession. I've asked Borough Clerk Claudio to open those bids. All bids were due to us by 4 p.m. today. And Clerk, why don't we start with 5th Avenue? So it appears we have one bidder for 5th Avenue and two for 10th. We'll start with 5th. Minimum bid for this project, for this concession, was $8,000 a month.
Okay, so we have one bid for the 5th Avenue Pavilion. The bid is from Richard Bott of M2 Concessions LLC, and the bid amount is $9,100.
Seeing as that is the only bid, we will proceed to
Award that lease.
award that lease.
Is Mr. Bott here? Thank you. I'll see you in a few minutes.
And we have two for the 10th Avenue Pavilion concession. The first one is from 10th Avenue Freeze Out, and the bill amount is $6,111. And the second one is from Chris Brendel of Jake's, and the bid amount is $4,500.
So the highest bidder is
10th Avenue Freeze Out.
someone from 10th Avenue Freeze Out here tonight. Okay, I'll see you in just a moment. Okay. There you go.
Our next items are a workshop discussion. I do want to recognize Lake Como Mayor Brian Wilton, just came in. Unfortunately, we moved quickly, so we already presented the resolutions to the Deputy Grand Marshal and Grand Marshal, but I'd love you to come up and just say a few words about being one of the two towns to host the parade.
Thank you, Mayor, Councilor. Appreciate you guys having me. We had a tremendous weekend, a little bit of cold weather, but it's special thanks to the parade committee and the Grand Marshal and the Deputy Grand Marshal for all that you've done. I know it's not an easy feat putting it together to raise the money and make sure it goes smoothly every year. So on behalf of the residents of Lake Como and all the visitors that we had, we thank you very much, and we thank our co-mayor Council for working with us to have another great year of parade season. Thank you.
So before we get our workshop discussion, if the members of the Belmar Parade Committee, Belmar Lake Como Parade Committee, you want to head out, please feel free.
Thank you very much.
Very well.
Notice the mayor of Venice one's shooting out here real quick.
So we have a really a treat for us here. Doesn't happen all the time, but we are honored to have Assemblyman Dave Rydell come to the council. Ask him to come up front, grab the microphone, and talk about whatever he wants. But we'd love to hear about what's going on in Trenton and when he plans on announcing for governor. I mean, now's the time.
Thanks, Mayor. You're offering me a treat here. I've never seen a public bid before. So that was very interesting. Clearly not in the fundraising business. You should have been here last time. Yeah, you should have pushed it a little bit. But Mayor and Council, I just want to take an opportunity just to stop in and obviously say hi, just, let you know that myself and Senator Singer and someone Sean Keenan here, at your service is here for the community if there's anything we can help you guys with. And I think the biggest thing going on right now in Trenton, we're just trying to focus on the allocating and appropriating the TTF funds that we recently approved over the summer, which is sorely needed for our state, which helps trickle down to our local communities. So it's going to be paramount if anyone paid attention to the governor's budget address. He's focusing on trying to get $400 million out immediately in construction and road repairs, which some of that will actually come down to the local level. So I know Councilman Walsh had a concern about that. I want to make sure we address that because it is ultimately get that taken care of. I'm not going to be announced for governor soon. We'll wait it all out.
Well, I will tell you, we did a dredging project at the Shark River, and that was funded through the Department of Transportation. A lot of people think it was Environmental Protection, or DEP, but it was actually Environmental Transportation. When do you think the money starts coming out of TTF for local projects like in Belmar?
Yes, that's a great question. The problem we have right now is the appropriations, because that won't be technically appropriated until the budget's passed. So if the governor asking for an early appropriation of $400 million, that would help us get it to the local level. And you guys, look, there's so many projects that are still on the local side that need to be taken care of, that we recognize that. And please, as I stand here, as your advocate in Trenton, that for Belmar, there's a project that you guys are sort of needing help on. I mean, obviously the dredging is paramount to all of us, the whole area. Rivers and short to get that done. I'll continue to fight for that, but also if there's any other issues, we'll have that. I'll be there for you.
Well, one of the other projects, and we had folks from DOT meet with us, and the fact of the matter was there was just no money for it, but is actually elevating, not by a lot, just by a little bit, Route 35 to help mitigate against flooding from the Shark River. So we get flooding, we call it nuisance flooding really now. If it's a bad high tide, right, with the wind out of the moon and wind, we have to shut down sometimes one, sometimes all 4 lanes of Route 35 because of the flooding around Elm Street Beach. And you look at just because it's the lowest section, whereas if you continue south on Route 35, you get to Oak Tree or any other Briarwood, it's dry. It's only another 24 inches. It's not a huge amount, but that difference is pretty significant for us. Again, major storms, that's one thing, but for us at this point, it's just moons and winds. So that's one of the projects that would serve 2 purposes. One, improving Route 35, but also serve as a hazard mitigation for this type of flooding that, at this point, maybe it happens 2 to 3 times a year when our DPW and police have to shut down Route 35, which is a state highway and it interferes with all that traffic. So that's one thing that we haven't been, but I'm going to bring to your attention. We'll be in touch with your office about assisting us with it.
And as you may or may not aware, some folks in town may not know, the TTF project, everything gets in queue and everything's all fluid because there's always something else that comes up. The Shark River was a perfect example. We jumped queue on so many other projects to get that done. So it is, everything's always fluid in that. But I just have curiosity with the 35, did that happen pre-Sandy, post-Sandy, or was that just a matter of time?
I mean, it happened in storms pre Sandy, but now it just seems, again, it doesn't necessarily have to be a,
It happens quite a few times a year. Prior to Sandy and even after Sandy.
Yeah, just right out K Street where the marina comes out, it's a low area right there. And it seems like it's always full there.
Yeah, it's the geographical lowest spot in Belmar, is K Street. Yeah, so, that's why it floods. While we're talking about that, if the transportation, Highway 35, ever get rid of those telephone poles on 35 North, I mean, they're so close to the highway, and if we could ever get those telephone poles down and electric underneath, if you did any Highway 35 work, that would be killing two birds with one stone. You know, there's sometimes those on a slippery night, I'm concerned about those telephone poles being so close to the highway, and I just think they're dangerous. If we could get rid of them, that would be great.
yeah, and it makes it difficult for people to actually, for pedestrians to walk along Route 35, right? It really narrows down the sidewalk.
It does, yeah, it really does. So, aren't you glad you came, Dave? Did you tell them?
I did the shopping list, that's right. That's all good.
Did you tell people that you were raised in Belmar? I mean, you were a Belmar.
Born and raised on Third Avenue.
That's right.
Third Day.
You said he got thrown out of Belmar.
Your dad built your house.
Yeah, he took over his backyard.
One of the things I keep thinking about, we're really looking forward to the Marina Grill opening shortly. And we already have an issue with people trying to cross that highway, pedestrians with bicycles, with dogs, with kids. And the light's not long enough. People really don't know what they're supposed to do. Ideally, the thing would be to put up a pedestrian bridge across that. And I would love to see if there's some way that the transportation trust fund can come up with that. I mean, the foot traffic's only going to increase, and the automobile traffic's going to increase, and the thought that somebody could be injured is it's a nightmare thinking about it, and I would like to see if we can do something about it. That would be the way to do it.
Well, I think it's worthy, maybe we get the DOT to come down and have a meeting with the chief and you, Mayor, and talk about some of these projects and try to actually get stuff kind of paid on some of these. I mean, underground, it's not like the little top, but I mean, some other stuff, it makes sense. And, I know you guys are always doing a little, as much as you can with less because of the mandates coming out of us, so I appreciate you guys doing a little more to try to provide the best services in the town.
Anything from you, Senator Walsford, why you got, sorry, Councilman Walsford for Senator Rival, while he's in the hot seat?
Well, I had spoken to Assemblyman earlier today, that I said that was one of my concerns, to see when some of that money was going to be released, and to see that it was going to be trickled down to at the local level and the municipalities. So, thanks for coming, Dave, and for Assemblyman and explaining all that to us, that it will be coming to us. So hopefully, no more in the graves of that money.
And official, by the way, official welcome to Diaz. It's officially welcome publicly, so welcome aboard. Please know, we're always a phone call away. I do think we will, Chief, I'll make sure we reach out to you and we try to coordinate a meeting with DOT to jump out some of these timelines. So it always helps when the chiefs of police are complaining about the issues too, that create an urgency. So.
Right. And I'll tell you, the reason why we're talking about the opportunity for projects like this is because of your leadership in the TTF, so thank you very much. Taking some tough votes, but obviously the right thing to do, otherwise, things don't fix themselves.
No, it's paramount to our safety at this time, and I think we're going to see some good results soon.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. And sorry, Councilman Nicolay. Thank you. Heard your comments, you're not your board. She has another pre-existing chip. All right, thank you, Senator. Let's give Rivals a round of Next on our workshop discussion is redevelopment projects for 500 Main and 707 10th. I will turn the dais over to Council President again.
Thank you. Okay, we'll just wait for Barry DePet to get ready, and you'll give us a little heads up on what you're planning for the two projects, one on 500 Main and one at 707 10th Avenue.
How far announce myself?
Yeah, Barry, you want to just announce who you are to April, even though she knows who you are, but make it official.
Barry Katef, managing member of 500 Main Street Urban Renewal. As everyone knows, we've been before this for you gentlemen for months now, probably about 9 months when we first started having these discussions about redevelopment opportunities at 500 Main Street, which everyone knows as Strollos, right? That's what your existing condition looks like at 500 Main Street. And the purpose of this was there was some confusion as to the extent of the development. So the proposed project would be the former Torch Gallery location as well as the abandoned warehouse and garage up to the two-story white single-family home that Acropolis owns. So that's the extent of the line, which is midway through the block between 5th and 6th Avenue, 150-foot frontage. So we were before you folks last fall with a little bit more of a contemporary look. You guys asked us to come back and present more of a residential type of an elevation. I thought this was received fairly well in January when we presented this to you. We had a TDRC meeting last Tuesday evening, fairly well received. This rendering was fairly well received. There were comments from that group about trying to make sure that it wasn't, I guess the best way to describe it is make sure that the commercial component of this project was stronger so that it didn't look like it was just townhouses on your main street. The whole idea of a redevelopment project is that it's still your core downtown, a commercial building with a mixed-use component, which is the residential. So that was Tuesday evening we completed. Some of the things that we also made change, it was noticed as the witch's hat. We said, okay, we'll get rid of the witch's hat. And started to create more of a tower effect, and we're still working with them about how to detail that corner, but made some changes on that, and started to stiffen up that commercial component. Brian, you were part of that TDRC meeting, but if you remember, the members asked about trying to get some more substantial banding. We talked about some other, in fact, I have one more board that may help visualize. I brought a sample board for us to use for both properties. But as an example of that banding and more of a commercial type of detailing at the first floor level. We also talked about use of textures and brick. This color scheme was something that the TDRC suggested they wanted to get away from just red brick and maybe go towards more of a brown detail in the brick colors. And again, the concrete banding that separates the commercial to the second floor residential. So those are the type of details. So that's where we are today. Tonight we're asking, I guess we're looking for a resolution to be adopted. A resolution and an ordinance.
There's Council President William Northgrave, Madam Scotland Bauman, I'm your redevelopment council. On your agenda tonight will be a resolution for 500, a resolution for 70710 to designate Mr. Pep's group as the redeveloper for each of those projects individually. They're not tied together. It's two separate agreements. And then there is an ordinance to be introduced to approve the long-term tax exemption and financial agreement for both projects, but outlays the projects to Stone Pencil Ave. So that's the legislation that will be before you this evening. First, it's a resolution that will designate. The second is just the introduction of an ordinance.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we're looking for your endorsement basically to approve us as the redeveloper for that parcel, and then we can move forward with the planning process with your local planning board, your TDRC, et cetera.
Yeah, as you mentioned, I was at the TDRC meeting with TDRC, Technical Design Review Committee. And one of the thoughts from the people at the meeting were that the original photo that, or design that you showed looked a lot like the one that you have at Riverwalk. And the TDRC people didn't want it to look like the same type of a building. So they want, when you're coming over the bridge, to see, oh, that's a nice building, and, oh, there's another nice building. They didn't want to come across the bridge and say, oh, those two buildings are the same. So that's why the TDRC kind of changed and added, wanted different colors, different textures, a different look. And, just figured I'd said that because I was at the meeting. And I think the advice coming from the TDRC, it's not just anybody. There's some very professional people that sit on that TDRC meeting. And they didn't just look at Mr. DePep's design and just okay it. They made suggestions, they said what they liked, they said what they didn't like. And Mr. DePep and his architect were very receptive to it. And in a very short amount of time, he came back with this different rendering to kind of follow what the recommendations were from TDRC committee.
And those plans are still being developed, right? We'll continue to talk to TDRC and bring out some more of the details, but I think a lot of it was a very productive meeting.
It was very good.
Several architects, you have a land planner, an engineer on that board, so it was good open dialogue and discussion.
Right, they didn't just look at it and say, oh, I like that. They didn't say, well, we hate it, but they did make suggestions, and you tried to do the best you could to accommodate. Mark or Tom, you have any questions?
I just wanted to make sure I remember correctly. Part of this was going to involve acquiring a lot behind it. Is that still the case?
So the site plan that we have put together right now does not require it. We have everything that we need to compile it. So it's it's the corner property where Strollo's is, the adjacent property on Main Street where the old warehouse is, and then the first 50-foot lot along Fifth Avenue, which is AP Inland Marina's lot where they have boat storage, winter boat storage current, and that's the entire site plan.
So you're going to have that lot too?
Correct.
That won't be used for boat storage anymore?
Absolutely right.
That's very good news.
Yes. A net gain of parking in that area.
Yeah, can you explain the parking, because it looked like some of the parking would be diagonal on Fifth Avenue, which is where, I guess, the public park on the street. Can you explain how you did that or why you did that?
Yeah, so it's an opportunity, there's a wider right-of-way right in there so that we can get diagonal parking along Fifth Avenue, similar to what we did at 8th Avenue at 800 Main Street, almost identical to that arrangement. I believe it's 11 diagonal parking spaces on Fifth, and because we're eliminating the warehouse, there's an extra wide curb cut there. We actually get 6 parallel parking spaces where there were originally only 4. So we've got picking up 16 total new parking spots on the road, and we have 42 parking spaces inside on a lot, very similar to what you see at 800 Main Street with the parking lot in the back.
But the public can park on those diagonals at these spots that you created?
All public parking.
Yeah.
Our residents, we have 24 residences, we'll retain 24 of the 42 spaces that are on site as a designated, everyone gets one designated spot. The rest of it it's shared parking, which meets your ordinance requirements, right?
That's what you want.
And everything on the street is public parking. I think we've asked to put a 3-hour parking limit on that.
During the day, or, I mean, I guess it's
24/7?
I think it's just daytime.
That sounds.
During business hours. The issue that we ran into, and I think Chief Heisman recently just posted no parking signs at 8th Avenue, but the retailers were always complaining that people would just park there for 8 hours straight. It wasn't helping the retailers. I'm trying to get those cars moving around.
I can see during business hours, you want to keep it, you want to limit the amount of time.
Yeah.
In the evening, I think we want to give people a little more flexibility.
When have you gone before the planning board yet?
No, we're looking for your authorization now to proceed.
Okay, so They have to get our authorization to go before the planning board, and then they have to get approval from the planning board, and then then after you go to the planning board, you come back to us, correct?
No.
No, for final?
No.
Planning board makes
It's-
final.
Yeah, this is, basically, just to remind, it's been a while since I think you've done a redevelopment project. Basically, the redevelopment plan creates a box. They have to build, the redevelopment agreement has to build within the box. The redevelopment agreement sets forth exactly what they're going to do, how many units, how much parking, all the other various details. Once they have that and you give it your blessing, then that's when they're off to the races with the planning board. Then they get the planning board approval, and then it's just a normal process, normal construction process. They would pull the building permit and move on. So this will be the last stop in front of the council, except for, you'll have the second reading of the ordinance in New Westchester Council meeting. But that's only for the financial agreement. The redevelopment agreement is what was preventing them from getting to the planning board. And candidly, that's on my advice and your planner's advice, that you don't want people going to the planning board who have not been designated redeveloper. You want them in an agreement with you before they go to the planning board to start building the project. So Mr. Pep has been anxious to...
What would be the problem if you reverse that? Have we run into those problems before?
You haven't run into it, but we have seen it occasionally where people will come and they'll want to build, they'll want to take the advantages of the redevelopment plan and not take the detriments, there's certain public accoutrements that come with, for example, the diagonal spaces that Mr. Pep just spoke about. If you could just use the zoning that is embedded in the redevelopment plan without providing other benefits to the community, you would kind of avoid the whole purpose for the redevelopment plan. So that's the reason why I like to hold the redeveloper speak to the fire, not let them go to the planning board, not get their approvals until they are in a redevelopment agreement. And if for whatever reason the project doesn't move along, there's default provisions, that type of thing. Otherwise, you don't have control. If somebody owns a piece of property, you don't have control. You can't force them to start building. In this redevelopment agreement, if for whatever reason, and Mr. Pep's got a long history here, but other redevelopers, if the project stalls, you would be without a remedy. The redevelopment agreement gives you the remedy to make sure that the project moves along, according to a set schedule.
Thank you.
And this has all the code requirements and all that? That's
Yes,
part of the
yes, there is the affordable housing are built into the redevelopment area.
Setback, height, limitations.
That's in the plan. Yeah, the bulk requirements are all in the plan, and, one of the first provisions of the redevelopment agreement is that the redeveloper agrees to build within the plan. If it's not, he has no authority to build outside the plan. There's no statutory authority to build outside the plan, but the redevelopment agreement makes that clear that it's be an issue of default. If, for example, I always use the absurd example, if he was approved to build residential and built a nuclear power plant, we could shut it down pretty quickly, it would be a default in the redevelopment agreement, so.
This is the parameters for the planning board.
Exactly, yes. Yep. The redevelopment agreement and redevelopment plan read together set the parameters that he'll go to the planning board.
Now, we have, I don't know if we do this, the fire department and first aid and all emergency services weigh in to this moves forward.
April?
Our fire marshal is part of the TDRC committee, so he has already seen the plans. And they've also been sent to the chief of police chiefs for his review. So if they have any comments, they can provide them.
So there's no surprises here?
Right.
And if there were any concerns, they can be addressed at the planning board as well.
We also hire an outside engineer to come in and do flow tests on your hydrants to check all your flows, to make sure everything's out there. We have information at Fifth Avenue for preliminary designs, and we just completed flow tests with Public Works about a week and a half ago, I guess, at 10th Avenue.
And at the TDRC meeting, we had two people from Mazer themselves sitting right here in the front row, so they know exactly what you're doing also.
Your consulting engineers,
Yes. April, when do they come before the planning board?
They're tentatively scheduled for Monday the 13th.
Of this month?
Right.
Great.
I'm sorry, it just occurred to me. I just wanted to see about green the building. I remember we talked about this already. How are you handling, say, your stormwater, your runoff, or other environmental and sustainability factors?
Right, so you have a sustainability checklist as part of this, and we've always exceeded that. I think, do you remember the actual number, April, by chance? I think it's 120 points. We're usually in the 140 to 150 points on that checklist on everything we do. between energy efficiency within the units, and LED lighting, and high efficiency appliances. And then we always do stormwater, some recharge. So everything's now gonna be collected on the roof essentially. This is 100% impervious.
Right.
We're actually improving it by 3% or 4%. We're at 96 or 94% impervious now. Probably a little bit of a cleaner situation for us, but there is recharge in the plant.
Adding all those points actually adds up to LEED certification, do you?
LEED is about 175 or 180 points.
All right, pretty close, but that's not bad. Okay.
Actually, we don't get credit for some things too, that we do also when it comes down to laminated glass in the windows and some of the spray foam installations, added insulation. We're not even getting extra credit for what we're doing there.
And that's energy saving, heat saving?
It's a benefit for our client, our residents, and, well, we experienced it at Riverwalk because we got tired of hearing the bridge go up every day while we were building it, so we decided we have to do some sound attenuation in that building. The same thing will hold true here. The same thing will certainly hold true at 10th Avenue by the railroad. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, now, Mr. DePep is the developer at 500 Main, but you are also a developer at 707 10th Avenue, but it's a separate project, right?
Correct.
Okay, can you show us that?
Proceed with everything? Okay.
Yeah, again, it's the same thing I said previously. There's two sets of legislation before you this evening. One is the redevelopment agreement for Resolution 500 Main. Second is a resolution for 707 10th. And then the second set is the financial agreements for 707 10th and 500 Main. And those, again, are the ordinances that will be in consideration.
I mean, he's the same developer, but these are two
separate
projects.
They're two, actually, just to be clear, although it is, Mr. Pepin, I believe, Lauren, or the main principals, they form what is called single-purpose entities to pursue each project. It's a common practice, and that's what you have here. The redevelopment agreement you're going to see for both of them are going to be with, I think it's 500 Main Urban Renewal LLC and 707 10th or something along those lines. I don't remember the exact name of the company, but that's what it is. You're approving two separate companies, but the principals of that company are appearing before you, and you've done business with them in the past. So.
Thank you, Bob.
And it is myself and Sonny Oran, same partners that have been involved with the three other redevelopment projects that we've done in town in the last 10 or 12 years.
And those projects are?
Our first was Seaport Ventures at the corner of 701 Main Street, directly across from Federico's Pizza.
Okay.
Then we did 800 Main Street, known as Seacoast Commons, the old DeFeo car dealership. And then most recently just completed Riverwalk, the old Havens and Hamptons property. So it's I think we first started.
You like Belmar?
We sure do. I was born and raised in Wall, but spent my summers in Belmar, so since about 5. So it's been, I think, from what, 2002 or 2003?
Yeah, in addition to about 20-plus single-family homes throughout town.
Yeah, yeah. In 2001, I think we came to town and did Belmar Playland, the old Reggie's site, right, and converted that Ocean Avenue from that to a single family, which was your zoning. So 10th Avenue, also known as 707 10th Avenue, which is where the beauty supply is, and the adjoining parking lot, just west of the lovely two-story building. So we were before you folks also sometime late 2016, made a presentation. It was a residential, well, Brian will help me a little bit, I think, on this, with what transpired at TDRC.
Yes.
We
Trying to knock you over backwards, huh?
Yeah, we came to you folks in November, I think, and suggested to you that we were interested in pursuing a redevelopment project. We got a favorable nod, and since then we've been working with your professionals, doing developers agreements, working with planners. Your TDRC last Tuesday threw us a little sideways. So we had a very residential, taking the comments that we received from you at 5th and Main, we felt that, okay, you wanted probably to see the same type of a residential look. We presented that to TDRC last week, and we had, if you recall, we had a little bit more of a contemporary look originally proposed at Fifth. They saw that sitting in the corner and said, we like that, what is that? So that's an old concept. They really pushed us hard that night to go to, what we're talking about is basically a new urbanism type of a design now. They thought this was an ideal location at 10th Avenue near the railroad tracks, as far removed from the residential communities east of Maine or even further south. They thought it was a wonderful opportunity, an exciting opportunity to take advantage of this location and go with something that was different. That was the big thing that came through, is they didn't want to see cookie cutter. They didn't want to see all Main Street cookie cutter, not track development, something come up with some more energy and some enthusiasm. So we've developed that smaller concept that they saw last week. We've developed that a little bit further. And again, I think this probably helps. I don't know if you guys can see this, but if you see the height of the building is 4 stories, and you see some of the trellis work that's happening up high, at the top of the first floor level, which is all parking garage, you'll see some trellis work down below also. So it's hard to see just in a black line, but the idea is to try to develop these type of cantilever, deeper soffits basically. Still has a bit of a traditional component to it, right? With the detailing. And then down below, work some of the steel trellis work down below.
You want to show the audience so that
Sure. So the higher elements of the proposal have the deeper soffits and cantilever. And at the lower levels, try to work in some steel cantilever things and some heavier metal type awnings and some structural signage. Again, there's a thought, this kind of illustrates maybe some different textures where we could do some panels here. And this is just an illustration of what can be done with different colors of panels. Use it just as a feature in the key areas. And again, using probably at least 3, possibly 4 different textures in the building. You know, this is a really good indication of, you know, we've got different textures, different colors, and it starts to become a really dynamic elevation. This, I thought, was a pretty good representation of what we're doing here, where you've got 2 larger towers, and then in between, and I think that came up in TDRC, is that not only break up vertically, but also break up horizontally.
right.
Right?
That's what you said.
So those were some of the design concepts that we're trying to expand on.
Now, can you explain to the audience what the first floor is?
First floor is covered parking, 97 parking spaces, basically the parking garage. Of the 97, we have 60 units proposed here, 20, 40, 60 in the 4-story construction. 75 of the parking spaces reserved for the residents, and 22 parking spaces open to the public with public parking. Currently, you have 42 parking spaces at that parking lot, so there's a net loss of 20 at that location, but we're preserving 22 spaces there, and it's now in a covered parking garage, which I think perhaps may be more desirable and a better location. People identify that, perhaps, we'll see. And then as part of our developers agreement, we're required to build 47 parking spaces at the borough lot, at the Waterworks lot. So you'll have 69 parking spaces when all is said and done that are public parking spaces. We currently have 42, so net gain of 25.
Now, at the TDRC, it was brought up, no retail, so all the people that live here, they're gonna have to use our Main Street and Main Street businesses.
Yeah, We were questioned at TDRC by one gentleman at least, questioning why didn't we feel there was a need for commercial or retail at 10th Avenue. I think the goal here is to generate foot traffic onto our main street and start to make all of our main street commercial spaces more successful. We still have a lot of vacancies, we still have a ton of turnover. We're really not taking much away from what exists there now. The beauty salon is almost, the building is almost entirely warehouse and online distribution. We do have the consignment shop that's on the corner now. They're in a lease. We're working with them. Ultimately, we'll have to transition them into another space in town. But again, that's probably close to a year from now, by the time we have all our approvals and we're ready to go.
I'm happy to hear you say that. I think, knowing the consignments shop, knowing that they're a charitable effort, I really want to, I'm happy to hear that you're going to take care of them. That was one of my big concerns about the project. And I would really like to see if we can move down.
I agree. Yep. Yeah, I think there's some opportunities. And we've already told the property owner, don't worry about that part of it from a financial standpoint. If we need to help them with, and give them assistance with some of the moving and relocation, we would do that.
Now, do you see these being apartments or condos?
Our goal is to make them apartments. My Ouija board wasn't right at Riverwalk. I had to come back to you guys and ask you for permission to convert to condos. At the end of the day, I think the marketplace is really going to tell us which direction this needs to go. Our goal is to make it apartments.
And what is the different direction between condos and apartments?
Well, in our design, we'll design these with separate utilities. We'll design these units are, we have 1 and 2 bedroom units. And we have 1 designated parking spot per resident. So there are pros and cons. If it turns to condo, we may see a pushback because they don't get 2 designated spots. So we're gonna have to see how that plays out.
How are you gonna handle the road behind the building that empties out now into that parking lot?
Yeah, our site plan shows, we're reconstruct that road. We're in the midst of obtaining an easement from Jaeger Lumber. I think it's 21 feet across the back of their lumber yard, so that we can reconstruct and run that back alley all the way out to River Road.
Okay, but you don't have that yet. You're working on it.
We go nowhere without it. Yeah, it's part of our conditions in our developers agreement. We have to do that. We have to build your parking lot before we even start any construction on this project also.
And I want to ask about this project, because I know it's a little aggressive and it's a little high. Have we consulted with our fire department on this, just to make sure that they have access to the back or the front? And believe me, we don't want to see anything happen, but just in case.
Right.
That you know that they have access.
I will, for certain, I will. We've tested the fire flows to make sure that we have enough water pressure to go 4 stories. That's there, yeah. We'll talk to the fire department about access, for sure.
Yeah, Barry, with all these apartments and condos, some people are complaining that there's going to be so many people moving into Belmar. Do you have any numbers as far as what the population was in 2000 and to now? Or
I don't know the numbers, but I can tell you that what we've seen in the 3 properties now that we've completed, which constitutes 56 new residences in the last 10 years, 2/3 of those residents were existing residents in this local area. Some from Wall, a majority from Belmar, Lake Como. Folks have sold their homes, downsized. Children of residents are living quite a bit, 26, 28-year-old children are living in these units now too. And we haven't generated any school-age children, by the way.
I'll get to you. I just know that the census in Belmar for year 2000, there were 6,000 people in Belmar, and now it's 5,700. So we have lost about almost 300 people in the last 10 years. So actually, you're bringing people in back to maybe the numbers where we were 15, 16, 17 years ago. And that's going by the government census.
And that's what it's, just to be clear, one of the purposes of redevelopment is to reanimate. Your main street is doing okay, you can do better, you can get a lot more. You're never gonna sell, though, you're never gonna lease that space unless you have people to go in those shops and those restaurants and those whatever. And that's the whole idea of bringing, you increase the density a little bit, and it's always a policy call for every governing body I appear in front of, but by increasing density, you do increase that animation of your Main Street, and this is right off, most of these, one's right on Main Street, the other one's right off Main Street. That's the whole idea, is to reanimate all that and start to get an even higher level of service than you have already.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons you want to see that increase.
Yeah, I think this is a very exciting project, I really, I think, I'm actually really excited to hear that TDRC is looking for a more urban look, because that is exactly the right location. I mean, that building's literally gonna be like right next to the tracks. Some of those units are gonna be right there, and they're gonna want that laminated glass.
I would think the residents might use the train as opposed to driving their cars. They just walk across the station, and it's an easy commute.
On the other hand, I gotta be honest with you. I mean, anytime we're talking about giving over property that belongs to the residents of Belmar, I take that very seriously. And I think you've done a really nice job. I saw it designed for the way you're gonna do that parking lot over on 13th Avenue. And I was really happy to see that there's diagonal parking and those spaces in the lot. There's parking right on the street. And there's a walkway, gonna be a paved walkway for as much as we can get in there. Because that always concerns me over there. I mean, the kids from school are walking over there. There are no sidewalks because there's really no room to put a sidewalk in.
Right.
The way the property is configured now. Last time you were here, I expressed my concern about the fact that it would be difficult for people to park on the 13th Avenue spot and be able to actually walk with a relative degree of safety all the way to 10th Avenue. The fact that we're going to still have some spaces at 10th. The question I wanted to ask is, and how are we thinking of this? Are we still talking about 3-hour limited parking? Are we talking about 3-hour limited parking in both places, on 10th and on 13th?
I think 13th is your discretion. That's your property. You decide how you want to handle that.
Okay.
In the 22 that we're preserving here, we had suggested 3-hour limits again to help the retailers in town. Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 or whatever.
Yeah, during business hours, yeah. And then something more flexible at night.
Evenings and
Yeah, I'd like to talk to you about that parking lot I have an idea for winter time where we don't need as much parking. See if we can plan something down the road for that parking lot for the summer and see if we can take advantage of that space for something else. Talk to them.
The 13th Avenue?
13th Avenue.
Colleen, that's gonna be your call.
Yeah.
13th Avenue is
You own
gonna be
it.
entirely.
No, the way he builds it might be.
Oh, got it. Yeah, but that's also, it's gonna be, the borough, just to be clear, the borough's in complete control. They will build what the borough wants, so, if you want a parking lot built this way, he'll build whatever you want to build, so so whatever you wanna do, it'll just be transmitted to Barry and his team, and that's what we've done.
But to the point, Mr. Brennan, over there, we actually designed, we did a preliminary design to make sure we could do the layout and accommodate those number of spaces. But we incorporated turf areas, landscaping, turf areas between the head-to-head parking also. We just didn't do all blacktop and paint lines down there.
Yeah.
We've got,
And I can tell you the teachers at the school will be very happy with that.
I think so too. That's what's in my thought. That's a convenient spot for the teachers, for sure. And it's interesting to see how much of the diagonal parking is always taken on 13th Avenue. It's always busy.
Always.
Yeah.
On the 3-hour parking, have you talked to the chief on how we're gonna enforce that? Because I know private property is different than when you're doing time on public property. So are you guys gonna handle it and just call the police department every time that there's 3-hour parking issues?
No, we have cross-access easements, right? And with that, we can give authorization to police to patrol it, I believe, right?
Right.
You have complete access that entire first floor.
Okay. So we're basically enforcing ourselves.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's probably change the ordinance or something like that.
Yeah, good point, good point.
Seeing nothing else, Barry, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
While you're done, we talked about 500 Main and 707.
Thank you. Next on our workshop is the Seaport Inlet Marina. This is a location where we had a fire on Valentine's Day. And, you know, we talked about it. We had someone come to our council meeting last time, and one of the things we discussed was how, you know, how in a lot of ways we got lucky that it didn't happen the day before when there were 45-mile-an-hour winds, and what else could have caught on fire? You have fiberglass boats and gasoline burning. So we, myself, business administrator, chief of police, and head of code enforcement, met with the owner of the marina to discuss what procedures were necessary going forward to mitigate against any possible fires at his marina where he stores boats. And we asked him to come up with a list voluntarily of what he's willing to do to make it safer, particularly because he's surrounded by residential properties. So some of the things, and you'll see where the asterisks are, he suggested. No fuel storage or holding, no fuel or very low fuel allowed in the boats. One of the things we heard was that all boats had to be filled with fuel when they're stored in the winter. Evidently that's not true. They do not have to be filled up to the top. And what we're going to do is push them to be removed of any fuel. All batteries must be dislocated. There must be fire trucks access marked in yellow latex road paint. One of the other issues we found out through this fire was the challenge of trying to get a fire truck down into the marina. But here's fire truck access to be clear at all times from the right-of-way to the bulkhead. And then here are some that I think are really going to make a big impact. Fire extinguishers must be located every 20 feet along the boat racks. You know, had there been a fire extinguisher at the time of this fire, it may have just been contained to one boat. Suppression systems, sprinklers on the racks, marina mini suppression systems, and the ATV mounted mini suppression system, which you'll see on the back. The other thing we did discuss was, and again his suggestion, were fire hydrants on the property, where there are none now. Possibly 3 or 4 fire hydrants. So we're going to continue our discussions. The other one we talked about was setbacks of the boats and how far they should be back from the property line. Right now, in some instances, they're probably within 6 inches to 12 inches of the property line.
For the property line.
The property line, right. So they're not touching the residential property, but they're that close to, you know, they're over either some type of vinyl fence or along the other side, a chain link fence. To the west, there is no fence. It's just kind of hanging over a parking lot.
I would think the residents would like that 10-foot setback instead of 6-inch setback.
I would assume the racks are higher than the fence, right?
The racks are higher than the fence. They're stacked up. I believe the top rack is 18 feet, but when you put a boat on top of that, you know, you may have another 9 feet. So you're going up to 27 feet, which obviously is much higher. So we're going to discuss that with him as far as, you know, he would have to either move the racks back or have shorter boats on those higher.
Could you move the racks closer to the water and whatever, you know, I've never been back there. And move, let's say, his office or buildings closer to, just rearrange that. Lots of the boats are as far away from the property line as possible.
Yes to all that. These are all things, and what we'd rather take an approach where we work with the property owner and come to an agreement on how he's gonna operate. But knowing that as the governing body, if need be, we can always put things into ordinance, and it's no longer something that is his suggestion that's being done voluntarily, but something that we're going to impose on him as far as how he would be allowed to operate. So I think it was a nice gesture, an important one, of him sitting down with us and coming through with suggestions that I didn't even think about. I mean, I didn't think about putting sprinklers on the racks, but clearly that would have helped with the past fire. The other thing that we learned from the fire is, you know, it's going to take, you know, 10 to 15 minutes for a fire department to get there and put water on it. And when it's just fuel and fiberglass, it goes fast. It goes really fast.
Does water put out fire of fiberglass and fuel, or do we need the foam that was brought in?
Ultimately, it was the foam that put out the fire once it got raging. So if you're able to knock it down beforehand, or at least contain it until the fire department gets there, again, if there were, it just makes sense, if there were fire extinguishers at the ready, you know, as soon as the canvas was lit on fire before it really got into the tank, you know, maybe it could have got put out and you know, maybe there would have been a little bit of a burn on that one boat as opposed to what ended up happening.
They have like specific fire extinguishers for marine applications, I would assume they do, right?
I would guess they do. I don't know for sure, but that would make a lot of sense. Because again, you're dealing with extremely combustible stuff. I mean, you're just dealing with chemicals, the fiberglass and fuel.
I'm sure a fire inspector, what fire extinguisher do you have to look at?
Yeah, and I gotta imagine there's special ones for.
Yeah, then you would have to get those.
Right, and you would have to get those. And he's willing to do all this. And I'm telling you, if you look at this sheet, this is.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff.
This is a lot, and this is not cheap.
It looks good to me, but as Mark recommended, we should get somebody that knows about fire to tell us, look through this, and say, good, but we also need this, so.
Right. And the other thing that again, Rob's a smart guy, but this wasn't all his idea. He saw what other marinas do. So it gives us an opportunity to reach out to them as well and say, you know, how has this fire suppression system worked? You know, did you have any issues with it? You know, has it been engaged, or did you have it and it never hasn't? There's been no need for it yet. So we still have you know, some issues with the property now with cleanup that he still has to complete. That isn't as far along as we'd like, but I think for the long term, mitigating against a future fire, I think.
How long has this gentleman owned the marina there?
I guess Rob bought the marina in maybe 2011. I know he owned it before Sandy, but not, maybe 2010, but before that it was owned by Joe Pomzano, and I believe before that it was owned by his dad. And they owned it for decades.
So if we put in a fire hydrants, we'll pay for that.
And
Good.
everything on this sheet is paid for by the marina owner. If you know, to get the water down there, he's gonna need a brand new water line. That's all on him. And that's what I'm saying, this is, you know, this is a pretty expensive endeavor. And it's nice to see that he's taking this seriously and not trying to.
What about our own marina?
Yeah, that was
Our own marina, we don't store boats on land. Everything's in the water. I mean, ours is as safe and secure as any marina out there. Fire extinguishers are required on each boat.
The next morning, there was a fire inspection after the fire of the marina. And I think there was a checklist of 22 things. Not only did our people go down, Charlie Vanderlyn, but also the fire marshals and code enforcement. And everything that was needed is there. There are fire extinguishers not only on the boats, but on each dock. Access to the water pressure was checked. There was just a total of 22 different things. Colleen Connolly had requested her to go down while she was at the fire, said tomorrow morning I want a full inspection of ours. So it was done and we passed it with flying colors, but I'm not saying there's nothing we couldn't learn from this list and maybe do something a little bit better also. There's always room for improvement.
So right now, we're going to continue this, and I'll report back to the council as far as where we're at, but at least you have this list. I'll give this list to April as well, so we can put it into the minutes, official piece of the meeting. But any other comments, questions on the marina? No? All right, next, artificial turf. So we have some artificial turf issues in town that we asked our attorney, Greg Cannon, to investigate what other towns have regarding ordinances restricting the use of artificial turf. And I did some due diligence on my own, but I'd like to ask Greg to brief the council on what he's discovered.
Most of the movement in this area and the regulation and discussions taking place out west in light of the drought that they've had there. So as you can see, I've pulled a few sample ordinances from around for you. One's from Simi Valley, California, one is from Thornton, Colorado, for drought issues, and one is from Key Biscayne, Florida, another shore community that's substantially in the same realm as Belmar. There's not a lot of regulation, if any, that I can really find in New Jersey on the artificial turf issue. It's clearly within the purview of zoning ordinance, and you can certainly do that. Right now, it's a gray area. The enforcement mechanism grows taking the position that these installations were not approved as part of the improvements to the buildings, and has contacted the property owners. I went around and did some site visits and looked at some of the turf and what it looks like. And as I understood the council's conversation last time, our concerns are really twofold. Number one, we didn't want to see the 69-cent rollout bright green mini golf turf all over town. And two, that sort of installation, what does that do to the impervious ground surface? There's water running onto neighbors' properties, onto our streets, across our sidewalks in the wintertime, things like that. With that, as you can see from, and I don't want to belabor the point, this is a lengthy presentation earlier, so I'll let you guys go through this as well. The Thornton, Colorado ordinance is pretty much the general one that I've seen overall. And this regulates, doesn't necessarily prohibit artificial turf, but it defines the parameters of what you can do. So essentially, you have to make it look real looking. There's manufacturer specifications with respect to the permeability of water, blade length, color, where it can be planted, because in some respects, it can affect the growth of trees and other live shrubs around it. So where you have to keep it away from the sidewalks, there's 3-foot buffer landscaping areas, and essentially confining it to particularized areas on the property, or in the case of the Thornton ordinance, they just banned it in front yards altogether, but allowed you to keep it in the backyard or some percentage coverage. So in terms of drafting an ordinance for Belmar's use, what I'd really like the council to think about why I gave you this information. And you can see that one of the most helpful ones was Simi Valley, California, had a handout for their residents to explain to them what the code says and what they can do. And there's a lot of the particulars are in this condition. That's green, fadeless condition. You can't have other weeds or things growing through it. And basically maintains the aesthetics of it in accordance with your zoning ordinance, which is important. So they're within your authority to do. So what I'm looking for really between now and the next meeting is the council, and you can email me individually, your ideas on where you'd like to see it go. Is color important to you? Is
The locating permit is important to you. I visited some of the properties, and some of them I was hard pressed to tell that it was turf, so I got close to it, to be honest with you. And then others, it was patently obviously 2 blocks away. So there's some sort of, what I'd like to know is what the council's pleasure is on that sliding scale and where we want to land there, so that I can draft an ordinance for review, and then we can tweak it from there and put it through.
Yeah, and it seems, again, in my research, it seems to be a real difference between, you know, what you can roll out for 99 cents a foot versus what the Giants play on at MetLife Stadium. And, you know, there are some that, environmentally speaking, are much better.
Yeah, absolutely. I was gonna say,
You don't have to water up.
certified.
And they are pervious, and they'll move more water through them than ground will, than regular ground. Because at some point, ground becomes saturated and it...
How much oxygen do these artificial turf give off like a lawn? Or how much carbon dioxide does it absorb from one? How much food does it provide for like the birds and the bees during the regular season? I mean, is that good? Is that something we should consider also? I would like you to consider that as opposed to just aesthetics. I mean, when you drive by this stuff, to see an Augusta green lawn in January in New Jersey, you know?
Fair points. Fair points all around.
Automatically looks artificial to me.
Fair points all around.
What about the life underground that this unnatural material is covering? You know, not that, you know, like, just the naturalness of the soil, the environment that benefits from real grass, real trees, real animals and birds. You know, besides the fact that someone doesn't want to buy a lawnmower, so the grass is green 12 months out of the year, we should consider other things besides aesthetics and the fact that water is permeable and will go into the soil underneath.
Well, the reason I focused on this, Councilman, is because you only have a certain amount of authority here to regulate what is done, and largely that, number one, stems from the zoning ordinance in total, and two, the impervious ground coverage and the aesthetics are really, the reason I'm focusing on that, there's certain, the concerns you raise are certainly valid. However, you don't really have the authority to regulate the gophers per se, it's the DP's job, or, you know, things that are difficult to measure.
You could get their opinion though, right?
You can, and I would urge you to, you can.
Wait, Gopher's opinion or DEP's opinion?
We already did that.
We don't have any Gophers in Belmar.
As a Caddyshack, you can actually...
Yeah.
So, you know, those are your bases for your regulations. You know, what the side effects or what the...
We can't recommend how much oxygen it gives off.
That would be extremely, I think...
Carbon dioxide that it...
It's hard trouble measuring.
We don't have the pollutants from a lawn.
But you can certainly measure percentage coverage of the lot, or where you can see it from, front yard, backyard, things like that.
When this stuff breaks down and it's made out of chemicals, what about chemicals it gives off as it's breaking down?
That was a significant concern in the cities in which well, there's no lead. But in terms of, one of the things that this town should very much consider is the fill. So you do not want fill that's going, for example, the fill that you can use in Phoenix, Arizona is significantly different than you can use in Belmar, New Jersey, given just rainfall differences and things. You don't want the fill to be washing your storm sewers, it's going to end up in the ocean. So those are the kind of the environmental concerns in my research really typically surround the fill and what is physically put on the ground or in the ground or subject to movement from the ground and where that's going to go. And there are, I think as part of this process, we're ultimately going to have to reach out to some turf companies or some people that can give us some more manufacturer specifications to put in there. Most of the ordinances that I reviewed really focused their environmental issues on the fill because that seemed to be the source of runoff, vapors, things of that nature. Heat's a particular concern out west. That was one thing they focused on a lot is soil absorbs heat in the sun a lot better than ground up tires per se, and reflecting that back. So those were some of the concerns as well. I think we're gonna have to consult with someone in the industry as well before we actually write this ordinance, so we can get those parameters correct to address those concerns.
I don't think they're gonna change Council President McGovern's mind much.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I will tell you that I was pretty adamantly opposed to it until I did start doing some research on it. And again, to me, there's a big difference between, the Home Depot green indoor-outdoor carpet. And, there's actually a place in Avon by the sea, on Main Street, one of the manufacturers. And you look at this stuff and it's pretty interesting. So I guess I have a little bit more of an open mind, more so than I did when we started this discussion, to be very honest. But I think we should continue researching it. But let me, what do you and Council?
I think, I definitely, it's somebody's yard, it's their property, within reason, what they do with it is up to them. And I don't want to go around telling people, you can only have this, you can't have that. I want people to have as much flexibility as they feel they need. And again, my concern is definitely how does it work as far as stormwater runoff and how does that kind of thing go. I think Councilman McGovern does raise some very good points about, being more naturally in tune with the environment. One would hope everybody would want that, but it's their yard. As long as they are, within reason, they should be able to do what they want. And I mean, the reason for me is making sure that they handle stormwater correctly, cheap stuff. And if they can certify that what they're using allows the water to go into the ground and not into the street, it's a big thing for me. Yeah, I like bright green.
What do you think of the sound of it?
Well, you're elevating me again. Well, my opinion on it is if we can pick a product that we put in the ordinance, we look at a lot of them, and it's the kind that we want, and it's the kind of product that we want that we can put into the ordinance. So if somebody's going to put it down, we know what exactly they're going to have to put down. And I agree with Councilman McGovern's worries about it, but also when you're looking at the artificial turf, people are putting down fertilizer and doing everything to try to keep their lawn going and spending the money on water and the lawnmower with pollutants. So I think it balances out if we can pick the right product. And that's going to be the one, if they want to put it down, they have to use this type.
Or at least meet the specifications. And there's probably a few products that will meet what we want them to be able to do, whenever they find a little work for them.
Yeah, so
Just
we
can't
don't
cheap
worry
it out.
about somebody putting down the real cheap stuff.
Yeah, no cheap stuff, that's it.
What about artificial trees or artificial hedges? You can go there? Pretty soon we'll have an artificial yard. You won't have to, rake leaves. You won't have to cut the hedges. It's all artificial, it's there.
We had artificial flowers.
Artificial flowers, that's right.
We got rid of that. In that case.
Artificial garden?
That was bad. All right, so we'll continue down this path and see if there is, and again, I think one of the things that I would completely agree with Councilman McGovern on is the fact that we prefer grass.
Absolutely.
We want you to have grass.
On our right of way, we can still control that, right?
Your current ordinance, yes. You can.
In other words, someone wants to put that on their front lawn, but we can tell them no, that they can't put it on the easement between the sidewalk and the curb.
Well, your ordinance is currently written, yes.
Okay.
Right. I mean, I'd be much more comfortable keeping this in the backyard as well.
Yes.
That's exactly what.
But here's my legal question for you, because you are smarter than all of us. You went to law school.
Thank you.
All right? Councilman Walsford is a retired police officer, which makes him very smart. But if people already did this years ago, and before the four of us and Councilman Nicolay were up here, and they got a certificate of occupancy, and they got a blessing from whoever the building inspector was at the time, are we able to retroactively go back and say, you have to change this?
Most likely not.
I'm fine with grandfathering anybody that's done it.
The way it says it most likely is because to the extent that we're still talking with you, so you get to benefit, the rules at the time you did something, or made an application.
Well, that's a good point, because the rules at the time prohibited it, but the town, someone in the town made a mistake.
It's mostly, so you don't have anything specifically addressing artificial turf in your zoning ordinance presently. You have the two areas for regulation that we discussed, the right of way and the impervious cover. So to the extent that there's rollout carpet, and that's not pervious or permeable to water, you still have the ability to regulate those properties.
Even if it's 8 years after they got certificate of occupancy for the.
I'll have to do a little more research on that, Mayor, but I believe that you,
And I hope we can, Warren, I hope we can, tell them, look, you gotta take this out. But my concern is, if I'm them, what are you talking about? The town already said I could do this, you're already signed off on it. You signed off on it 10 years ago, whatever it is.
well, it's hard to speak about everything, there's different people with different circumstances. There are some people that, yes, have particularized approval that came up recently, or there's other people that just rolled it out. So for me to give you an exact, it would really be on a property by property basis when you do that analysis. That's why I don't have I said most likely, or I'm hedging, because all of the 11 properties that are affected are all different and have different circumstances in terms of what their approvals say and, or what silence or what was done without. So they're all different circumstances. So give me one answer. Generally, if people were in the right, they'd be grandfathered in. However, it may not be the case with all of them, so.
Gotcha. Well, based on that answer, you're no smarter than the rest of us. I'm just kidding. All right, so anything else? But right now, as we sit here, there is no, or our ordinances are silent when it comes to artificial turf overall.
Correct.
All right, any other?
Well, except for impervious coverage.
Yeah, but the impervious coverage could be.
There are applicable provisions, there's nothing that says
Concrete
artificial
or
turf in your zoning ordinance.
All right, any questions on, overstory? All right, that's a long meeting. Next, petitions. Any petitions for the mayor and council? I don't see them. Next, approval of the minutes.
Approval of the minutes. I move that the minutes of the regular meeting held on February 21st, 2017 be approved as recorded and that a copy thereof be posted on the borough's website.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next are reports of the mayor and council. Council President McGovern.
Okay, I'll go first. The workshop meeting on the two development projects kind of stole my thunder. So I was just going to talk about attending the TDRC meeting and how impressed I was with the people on the committee. You know, there were architects, there were engineers, there's a realtor, the head of the planning board was there. And they legitimately made suggestions of what they wanted to see, what they didn't like. And I liked how the developer was accepting of their input, and he went back and he made some changes. So in other words, when you see a development go in town, you can tell that before that development is built, it's got and been influenced by some very knowledgeable people in town that has ideas of what these buildings should look like. And one of the things that the TDRC didn't want to see were buildings that looked the same. They wanted to see a different look from the new buildings going up. So you wouldn't have, and Barry mentioned it before, because it was mentioned at the TDRC meeting, a cookie cutter look in town with the new development. So I was glad to see that you made those changes. Next, I'd like to congratulate Dara Mabry. She was winner of the Kerwin Award, which means best female basketball player in the short conference, 50 teams. That makes 5 Kerwin winners for the borough of Belmar. Goes back to Brian Lynch in 1996, Darren Kennedy in 1997, and familiar people to Dara, sisters Michaela in 2015, and Marina in 2012. So 5 people from Belmar winning the Kerwin Basketball Award, pretty good achievement. But the thing that I'm most excited about is a boy named Eric Kossian.
Yeah.
Eric Kossian, 4 years ago, was here. We recognized Eric for his wrestling at Belmar Elementary School. And in those 4 years, I would see Eric run around Silver Lake. Each year he got bigger and bigger. And he wasn't built like a run. It was an effort for him. His senior year wrestling record, 42-2. In the 220-pound weight class. He's a big boy now. Not a cross-country runner. But last Sunday in Atlantic City, he had to wrestle the #1 seed, who was 40 wins, no losses this year. He was undefeated. Eric had to wrestle him for the finals. Eric not only beat him, Eric pinned him. So that makes Eric the first wrestling state champion from the town of Belmar. And another good thing about Eric, besides that, he's going to West Point next year. So he's a good student also. So in 2 weeks, I'd like to recognize him again, see if we can get some of his Belmar Elementary wrestling coaches here, like Matt Sharon, and can you reach out to them? They would love to up here and see them. I'd like to have, when I was recreation director, I'd always give special awards other than trophies. And I want to give Eric's dad a special award, the Cameraman's Award. I want to show the video that Chris Kossian, the dad, took. Because Chris suddenly realized that Eric was going for the pin. And instead of keeping the camera on it, he starts swinging it all around. The excitement of a dad seeing his son win the state champion. And I want to put it right up here on the screen so everyone can see it. Okay, that's my report.
Thank you. Voted back to Councilman Walsh.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a couple things. February 24th, I attended the PBA Valor Awards, and the reason why I want to bring this up is a couple of our Belmar officers received awards. I mean, the police department does a great job, and it was nice to see them getting recognized for that. And the only other thing that I have is I just want to commend the DPW, the police department, and everybody that was involved with the parade, because they really did a great job. That's all I got.
Hey, Councilman Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to echo Councilman Walsh's first comments about DPW and the parade. Every year they do a great job, absolutely. Particularly this year, Police Department DPW, we had some new, more stringent safety concerns. Everything was handled beautifully, really, really beautifully. And I think everybody who came, and I would, to be honest with you, I was a little surprised at the crowd because I thought it was freezing. we decided, Mr. Hallman, the superintendent over the school, and I, 8 o'clock in the morning, we're calling up, are we taking the kids? I don't know, you think, I don't know. So we decided to err on the side of caution, not take the children out in the cold. Well, I was able to march with the mayor and council. I was really impressed with the number of people that showed up despite how cold it was. This parade, the Belmar Lake Como Parade, is one of the premier events in the state. Not just for the month of March and St. Patrick's Day and the Irish marching season, but really all year round. It's a huge event. And I think we do ourselves and our communities proud of the way it's handled. And that really boils down to the way the Public Works and Police and Fire prepare and execute. I think it's a great job. They do a great job. I wanted to mention, I gotta tell you, I remember I was helping to coach the wrestling team over at the elementary school when Eric was in the 4th grade. I remember him learning how to wrestle, and he was tiny. He was the tiniest little kid. Oh my God, and I've been following his career all the way along, and he's just really an inspiration. He's been his family has been hugely supportive. Really a pleasure to watch. I know really.
I'm glad we can recognize him, because I don't want to tell Eric now that we're not going to recognize him.
Oh, no.
So if we don't, I'm going to say, Tom, you tell him Okay, since you wrestled the CBA, so.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, one other thing, I was gonna let Councilwoman Nicolay make this announcement, but this Friday and Saturday, the Belmar Elementary School Drama Club is putting on their production of Peter Pan. I don't want to grow up. And some students that are familiar to all of us are there. In particular, our lead, Peter Pan. Where would she have ever learned that? So it's 7 o'clock on Friday night. I think it's a couple of dollars to get in to pay for the costumes. I've been helping with the dress rehearsals because I'm the audio technician, and it's been really amazing to watch them, particularly since they all put on the costumes for the first time today. And it's amazing to see the change when they actually realize we're actually going to be in front of people doing all this stuff we've been practicing for months. So it's 7 o'clock on Friday night, it's 2 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. Please come on down, support the kids, you won't regret it. It's a great show, great show. And that's it for me.
Thank you. I have nothing to report. This meeting's getting long. Next, public session. It's public session on the resolution calendar only. So any comments, questions on the resolution calendar, after the resolution calendar, then we have ordinances, after ordinances, then we have the public session where you can say whatever you like. That's why I try to keep my remarks short. So this is open to anyone who wants to speak. Please raise your hand, wait to be called on, come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. This is on the resolution calendar. Seeing no one wants to make a comment, I'll make a motion to close the public session for the resolution calendar.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Councilman McGovern, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. I see a hand up there back for, okay. You want to come up and talk on resolution calendar only?
Resolution calendar?
Yeah. I saw the hand go up, okay. Okay, so the resolution authorizing payment of bills. Do I have a second?
Councilman Brennan?
Yes.
Councilman Walker?
Yes.
Councilman McGovern?
Yes. Our resolution of the Borough of Belmar, County of Monmouth, New Jersey, designating 500 Main Street, Partners Urban Renewal, LLC, the redeveloper, as redeveloper and authorizing execution of a redevelopment agreement. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Councilman Brennan?
Yes.
Councilman Walker?
Yes.
Councilman McGovern?
Yes. Finally, I have the resolution of the Borough of Belmar, County of Monmouth, New Jersey, designating 707 10th Avenue Urban Renewal, LLC, the redeveloper, as redeveloper and authorizing execution of a redevelopment agreement. Do I have a second?
Second.
Councilman Brennan?
Yes.
Councilman Walker?
Yes.
Councilman McGovern?
Yes.
Next is the consent agenda. I'll offer the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Councilman Brennan?
Yes.
Mayor Doherty?
Yes.
Councilman Walker?
Yes.
Councilman McGovern?
Yes.
Next are ordinances. Councilman Young.
Okay. Okay, these are first readings and introductions, so there is no public hearing on these first reading of the ordinance. Ordinance 2017-8, the ordinance of the Borough of Belmar, County of Monmouth, New Jersey, authorizing the execution of a financial agreement with 500 Main Street Partners Urban Renewal, LLC. Do I have a second?
Second.
Councilman Brennan?
Yes.
Councilman Walker?
Yes.
Councilman McGovern?
Yes. And this next ordinance, also just for first reading and introduction, ordinance 2017-9. Ordinance of the Borough of Belmar, County of Monmouth, New Jersey, authorizing the execution of a financial agreement with 707 10th Avenue Urban Renewal, LLC. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Councilman Brennan?
Yes.
Councilman Walker?
Yes.
Councilman McGovern?
Yes.
Okay, that concludes ordinances. Next is public session. Public session, again, very simple. Just raise your hand, wait to be called on, go up to the microphone, state your name and address for the record, and everyone gets 5 minutes. Yes, sir.
Good evening. It's Monty, 117 19th Avenue. I'm here to address the discussion about the artificial turf.
Okay.
First off, for the record, I have no problem cutting my lawn. I did own a lawnmower prior to getting turf. I've been a resident here 10 years. I've had the turf for about 6 years. I had it installed professionally. And my reasoning for it is after numerous attempts to have a viable lawn for numerous reasons. There was a big discussion in my house over it, and after great cost, we decided to do this. Part of the reason, 2 blocks from DJ's, the curb strip that you are addressing, always filled with debris, public urination, and on one occasion I had human defecation on my lawn. So, in essence, I wanted to simplify things for myself and my family. Furthermore, when we went upon this venture, the installer advised me that there was no permits needed. So I took it upon myself to call the town hall, and from the limited notes I have from 6 years ago, I was told there's no permits, no variances, there's no regulations on it. Okay, so I went ahead and installed it. Now, the grass that you are referring to in the ordinance, okay, it says grass, albeit I have synthetic grass. Okay, it's not like I defied the ordinance and put stone there. Okay, I went to great expense to do this. It's not cheap, and if I may, I have photos.
Oh, we'd love to see it. Thank you.
First of all, here's the Sandy.
And I'm photo, yeah. My personal photo, I'm photo of that. That's your neighbors.
Now, here's a current photo of my lawn down, plus how the neighbor's lawn looks.
That was this afternoon.
The material that was used is a DuPont material, and I do have the test results. Of the water drainage percentages.
And real quick, was this put down before or after Sandy?
Before. The picture of Sandy is one,
See the kind of.
that's what happened after Sandy.
Got it. Okay, sorry to interrupt.
So we've had no problems over the years. Like I said, it's basically maintenance free. I was very worried about fires because we are surrounded by rentals. And like I said, cigarette butts, urination. I just wanted to avoid a problem. I mean, we have quality of life issues over there, so, you know, I just wanted to do the best I could for that section. Now, if I may ask a question?
Sure.
Okay, environmental wise, how does this differ anyway from the recycled tire surfaces that you'd be putting in the parks? Sorry?
How does this differ from
Right,
recycled
environmentally, the
surfaces?
that you're gonna be lining the parks with?
Well, the primary difference is one is there for the safety of children playing on a playground, and it's better than the wood chips, which we'd have to, Mike Kim's not here, but we'd have to renew on occasion. So it's more for safety in a playground. It's really the standard for playgrounds nowadays.
I was just trying to differentiate the environmental factors with having grass in a park as opposed to having grass on my lawn. It's recycled rubber, and mine is synthetic grass. So I don't.
Do you know what the fill is? That would be the next question.
Well, the fill basically was, well, the installers here will explain it to you, but right now it's sand because of Sandy. So my fill is sand from the ground.
Right about that.
And it's maintained every year. I pay to have it maintained every year. Aesthetically, it's wonderful. and it suits our needs. Okay? And once again, when I...
And Brooke, if I can ask you a question,
Yes, sir.
I assume you got one of the letters from code enforcement?
No, sir.
Or you did not?
I came here voluntarily.
Thank you.
Okay, so I guess I'm here to explain, why we have it. It's just not we're not lazy to do our lawn. We have different reasons for doing it. Once again, we have 2 small children, didn't want to go through the pesticides, couldn't do the lawn, tried it numerous times, and with the curb strip over there, I have 2 spots in front of my house. And it's always taken up by people that are going to DJs. So every night, vomit or urine. And how do I know this? Because they still do it. I have cameras on my house. So I know they still do it. And what really got me was the human defecation. So I said, you know what, let me get something that's easy, wipe it off. I don't complain. You can check, I really call. I fly under the radar. So all I want to do is have my household, the way it is.
Oh, you say fertilizers. Did you ever hear of organic fertilizers? You don't have to use Scott's chemical fertilizers. And I'm looking at your lawn, it's really not that large. It's really, organic lawn would be fantastic.
Sir, we've tried numerous times at a cost of putting sod down and everything. It just wasn't holy. And especially after Sandy, it was even worse. Okay?
Well, of course.
I would have weeds
Salt
there.
water came over. Of course it's gonna get affected by the salt water from Sandy. So is mine. My front lawn, I had to, start all over again. That's your homeowner.
Well, this was my option, and
Yep.
this is what I went for. And once again, it was not regulated. I called myself to the town. There was nothing on the books saying that we...
Is this your house here?
117, correct?
Yes, sir.
Is this your neighbor's dead, dying bush that's real close to your artificial turf?
Yes.
Yep. Thank you. And the one further away from the artificial turf that's still healthy, huh? So the one close to your property with the turf is dying. Thank you.
It's been dying.
It's been dying for years.
Sir, it's one speaker at a time.
He doesn't maintain his property, first of all, and I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus, but he doesn't maintain his property. So if we're going to make an assimilation between a dead tree and my lawn, okay, if anything, that water that's coming off of, that's going through my lawn, it's a separate entity, okay? I don't see how my lawn would actually affect his. Probably his bush started dying right after Sandy. It's a pine tree. They're all dying. I don't know if you have any pine trees, but most of the pine trees were dying after Sandy, and they continue to die.
Okay, sir, I don't want to cut you short, that's your 5 minutes.
Thank you.
Did you have your hand up? Choose her, she's got pictures and...
Yeah, but I'd like him to go first, because he's gonna explain what we have to forever lawn.
Oh, okay, sure,
And I'll-
I just... Anytime someone brings pictures, we gotta bring them up here. I got pictures too.
Well, he's our installer. He's my installer.
Oh, okay.
And it's better if he explains this.
No problem, just go up, say your name.
So, my name is Jason Rusak, I'm founder of Forever Lawn to Shore and Shore Synthetic Grass, the officer of various different products. We're gonna set these down here if you don't mind.
Where's your business located?
408.5 Main Street, Avon.
Oh.
Yeah, I missed you, the councilwoman said you would stop by. That's probably when I got the article from a customer, we were installing in Lake Como. We had the warm weather, I don't know, but they just come by.
I saw you in there hiding.
Then it came after 5 o'clock. So, but if you don't mind, I have some information here from a third-party industry called, or industry advocate, if you want to call it that. It's called the Synthetic Turf Council. They have the guidelines in place that you talk about in terms of specs, proper installation procedures, so on and so forth. Now, obviously, from the council YouTube videos I watched previously, your attitudes have changed some. Initially, you questioned the motive of the residents, and then them not wanting to cut the lawn. The first thing I'd like to address is the lawnmowers and their emissions. They're not regulated like ours. One lawnmower, I don't want to state an incorrect fact here, but if you do the research, lawnmower emissions versus car emissions, one car equals 10 or 15 lawnmower emissions running for a half hour. It's unregulated. So when you talk about, not wanting to mow the lawn, I understand where you're coming from there. Well, I didn't understand where you're coming from there, but
What about a push mower that Not.
Well, yes, of course, you could get a real mower, they're called. Prior to this, we've been in business for 10 years, I started in 2007. Prior to this, I was in natural lawn business. I was a manager for the.
I'm sorry to stop you. If you can stand in front of the microphone.
Okay.
Yeah, just stay right there.
Okay, not a problem. So I know a lot about natural grass as well as synthetic grass. The problem you have in Belmar is sandy soils. Everything you put into the lawn perks right through that sandy soil. It is not taken up by the grass. You don't have a healthy soil or the majority of homes don't have a healthy soil to hold those fertilizers, so they're ending up right up in the waterways, the lakes, the bays, Sharp River, for example. This booklet here is from the Synthetic Turf Council. Like I said, there's plenty of guidelines in place. We had this issue with the Historical Society in Ocean Grove. Legally, I was told, they cannot say you can only spec DuPont Forever Lawn. I brought a bunch of samples here for you guys to see also. You don't see them right here. But you can see the drainage holes in the back, so on and so forth. Now, if you were to say, DuPont Forever Lawn grass is the highest quality, most technology advanced turf there is. Now, if you were to tell everybody they only had to install this, I can charge $20 a square foot if they wanted the grass. It's not like a monopoly thing. So the Historical Society said that's not an option. They had initially banned us. We had that overturned. Now we're installing turf throughout Ocean Grove. Before that, homeowners were doing it anyway at their own discretion. I tell all potential customers that the curb strip is the town's property. Should you want to widen the road, widen the sidewalk, they could very well take that from you. So the majority of them are aware of that. The house on Ocean Ave, which she asked me to show pictures, which is in one of your books, she did not do the curb strip. They just did the front of the lawn. That's Vespia. Vespia is one of you familiar. And then on the corner of 13th and Ocean Avenue, you have a lawn that I have pictures of. And then the neighbor next door, I realized today also, that looks atrocious. I literally wanted to go there and fix it at no cost because the damage would do to the industry and synthetic grass in general. We do install it over stone base for stability as well as drainage. It creates aggregate mixed with a stone dust. We do not change the contour of the lay of the land, so whatever the grade was, we do not change that grade. So it is pitched towards the drains on the property, or always away from the house. Each condition is different, and you'll see that if you drive by some of them. And that's essentially it. I mean, obviously, some of your outlets have changed since I saw the YouTube videos. So I don't know if you have any questions for me, but I'd be more than happy to help you. With guidelines, there are no guidelines in New Jersey. Actually, there is. I don't know if I should get into that, but there is a town that has guidelines for synthetic turf. Well, it's not so much synthetic turf, but they require a certain amount of vegetative growth to prevent, like you're saying, all artificial trees and plants. Believe it or not, I've installed all artificial trees and plants. Not in Belmar, Staten Island. We live in Staten Island, we do a lot of work in Staten Island. There are artificial trees and plants that you will not. You wouldn't know they were artificial, to tell you the truth, regardless of the season. That being said, I'm not going to cross that bridge, but I mean, you're welcome to come to my store, and I will show you the products that are available on the plant side, but I'm not here to go into that. But I am here to answer any questions that you have in detail. I want to give you a source, which is the Synthetic Turf Council, which we're active members on. They have everything from EEP, every kind of test, independent. So I'm not here to advertise my products either. But I did include. That's 5 minutes.
That's your 5 minutes.
Okay. I did include some playground grass information in there.
Does the council want to take a look at this turf?
This is standard quality turf. We do sell that. This is premium DuPont Forever Lawn synthetic grass.
That's the good stuff.
That's the best in the industry. This is the best playground surface in the industry. We are certified for the realism.
Oh my God, this looks like real grass.
We also have canine grass here, which is flow through for dogs. If you look at the lake, you see right through that. That's a special thing, and this is just to provide varieties, to keep it green. So there are multiple options, they all do drain. They also comprise of recycled content, which you'll see in that responsible landscapers.
All right, thank you.
But I'm available for any questions, you know what my store is. You guys want their cards? Pick up a- Thank you.
Hello. Hi, I'm Lisa Leo. I have a house at 101 9th Avenue. It is our second home. We do not rent it out. It's for our family. We bought in Belmar because Belmar's near 180. I grew up down here. I went to Manasquan High School. So I'm not from up north. We love the town. We love everything. When I read the article, believe me, steam was coming out of my ears because this is my house. This is my house before renovation and after. I like an impeccable house, and we did go with the lawn. And Councilman McGovern, I don't like to mow the lawn. I like to go to the beach, but I do have beautiful beach roses and bees along them. So, and they're thriving. So I'll pass this around. Hello. It's the house before. Nothing was done to it since 1930. So we renovated the whole thing. Also, I want to let you know that Ted Bianchi, he's your plumbing inspector and overall inspector. He gave me the CO 2 weeks after my lawn was in, did it to the curb. So I do have that CO. If you want to see it, I can definitely produce that. And I did call April when we wanted the lawn to be sure that there were no permits, and I was told no permits needed. It's totally fine. So we did check every box. We renovated the whole house. We had a great contractor. All permits were there. April knows me. It was a long process. I know you're saying you should mow your lawn, you should have green grass, all that stuff, but the fertilizer, the runoff, the clippings. I have children and a dog. It's safe, it's never hot, it's beautiful, my lawn looks gorgeous, and I like it green. So I don't, to be quite honest, and the water goes through. I have the top one that Jason sells from Forever Lawns. We did research, my husband did all the research, and it's really nice. And I know you're saying between the sidewalk and the street, you guys own that property. I don't know what you want to do with that. If you were to make me take it up, I wouldn't do anything. I would just leave dirt. So I'm not putting grass there. I'm coming down here on the weekends, enjoy the beach, enjoy the restaurants. We come down every weekend, we enjoy it. We spend many weekends here in the winter too. So that's where I'm at on that.
Where's your rent house?
I live in Homedale. Okay. And I do have one there.
Do you have this in Homedale or no?
No. You're allowed to have it though, but it would be way too expensive. The only downside to this lawn is the price. Everything else is an upside. And I just think aesthetically, if you saw my neighbor's lawns, it's a dirt patch with a couple of crabgrasses. It's terrible. When the lawnmowers come through there, I roll all the windows, lock everything up because the dust is flying. It's awful. So, and also, I don't know what your situation is with rocks, but I drove around town today when I came down early. There are more houses that have rocks in the street and the whole yard. And a lot of them have the plastic. I got out and looked. A lot have the plastic under it. So if you want to talk about no drainage, there's probably, you're talking 11 properties, 2 businesses, 9 homes, and you're spending all this time here at a council meeting talking about this. I really think there's bigger fish to fry. Let's talk about 3rd-story buildings with no fire escapes. Let's talk about cracked sidewalks. Let's talk about overcrowding, indoor furniture on the outdoor porches, baby pools in the yard. I grew up down here. I remember when, it was all rental shacks. I don't know which way you want to go, but I would see that the town totally wants to go in the direction of families and keep it nice. That's what we're trying to do. So I hope that we have a resolution. I hope I don't get a letter. I did not get a letter. I read it in the paper. I got notified about this. That's where I'm at. Okay?
This is your house, they have pictures of your house and then.
Remember, one person speaks at a time, sir.
We also have other pictures of my house here and the neighbors.
Thank you.
If anybody wants to see. Yes.
Yes, we will.
Show it to them. You want to see that? Sure. Be proud.
Yes, sir.
That's what they don't like.
Hello, my name is James Kaufman, and I lived in one of those houses where the fire was. And I'm really glad that you brought all that to our attention, of all of the things that they're going to do to correct and make that area safe again. So that's the reason I came here tonight, and I think that what you said to us is pretty comprehensive. However, can we get those notes so that
I'll get you a copy.
Okay, could we do that by the end of the meeting tonight?
Yeah, possibly.
Okay, this way.
If not tomorrow.
All right, this way myself and my neighbors can sleep well. knowing that a lot of things are getting done. And also, do you know what the time frame is on some of what they were?
That I don't have an exact time, but once we do hammer out an agreement, we'll certainly put a time frame on it. This thing can't go on for, this can't be it's gonna take me 12 months. No, it's gotta take, once it gets going, it's gotta take a few weeks. It can't take for a long time.
We've heard nothing at all. That's why we're coming to these meetings every week.
Totally understand. And if I was you and I saw that fire, I would be coming here too.
Oh, it was frightening.
It was frightening.
We thought that
And
our
God
house
forbid, if you
was
saw
all
what
going to blow
happened
up.
in Ocean Grove, I mean.
Yeah, that was horrible too. I mean, that was
Horrible too.
worse, but this was really.
No doubt.
And plus, like you said, the whole area is surrounded by residential houses right now, so there's a lot to be lost. So I'm glad to see that they are taking some steps. So it'll be good for us to have that communication as well.
Now, like I said, the owner's been very proactive in coming up with long-term solutions, which we're good. Again, some of them we didn't even think about. What he's proposing is very expensive, so he's taking this seriously, which is good.
Okay, that's good to hear. All right, thank you. That's not 5 minutes, right?
No, minute, 12 seconds.
We'll give the time back.
Anything else you want to talk about?
No, not right now.
Any comments, questions? Yes.
Hi, Robin Melody, 11719. My husband Ed spoke a few minutes ago. Again, we're one of the properties with this, that's us, yes. I'd like to reiterate, when we did put this in, there was nothing done defiantly. We did do our due diligence, we did check with the town, we did ensure that there were no ordinances in place, and we did choose a high-end, aesthetically pleasing surface to put in front of our house for those reasons. The fact that there is even suggestion now that we could have to remove this is very unfair to us. Like I said, we put a lot of money into putting this in. We've kept it up, we've maintained it, and the fact that now, for some reason, this is becoming a problem, for the 9 homes that have this, it's really unfair that you could think about having us remove this. That's all I want to say.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Rick at Ace 413 13th Avenue, and I'm one of the ones with the artificial turf, and I did get a letter, and I'd like to add to the gallery if you don't mind.
Sure. Thank you.
That's what before this actually was actually bought, and that's what we did to it. We purchased the house in 2012, and we recognized that we had a problem with landscaping in the house. We also recognized that the house needed a lot of interior work as well. So we dedicated our time to the interior first. And then we did consider what did we want to do with the landscaping. The backyard actually had turf in it, the artificial turf laid in the back. It wasn't laid out professionally, it was just basically laid on top of whatever was underneath it. At first, through our thinking about what we wanted to do, we did a lot of research into other things first. And then, for some reason, we said, well, we got to do it back, and it looks like good quality. And we started doing the research for artificial turfs, the pros and cons, and so forth. And eventually, we did decide to go with the artificial turf. I have a sample here. We did go with good quality. It even has like dead grass at the base of it, so it looks kind of real. The thing that concerned me was I was reading through the CoStar and I saw that this came up at the council meeting the first time, and I started looking back, and this was only about a week and a half ago. And then I saw the second meeting that it was brought up, and then I watched the videos as well, and I knew this was coming up today. I do have a spec sheet on our grass, and the thing that I was concerned about is whether it was turned impervious. There was a lot of talk about impervious, that the grass may be impervious. The specs on this particular turf is 30 inches, the drainage is 30 inches per hour per square foot, the drainage. So that's pretty substantial. I did a very scientific experiment. I took a spackle bucket and almost filled it up. And I went to, close to the edge of the sidewalk, about maybe 18 inches in, and I just dumped it. I didn't just pour it, I dumped it to see for myself. It was the first time I did something like that. But I knew that with the heavy rains that we had, we didn't have a lot of runoff problems. So this was our main concern, was the permeability of the substance. I poured it down, the sidewalk did not get wet. Everything went right into the substrate. And if it's done properly, if you're not putting plastic under it, you're going to get that, permeability in the substrate. This is permeable. The substrate may not be if you have plastic under it, so you put on crushed stone. It also has no lead and no nylon in it. The other concern was allergies. You get a lot of allergies from the two properties besides us. They have a lot of weeds growing in them all the time. My wife is very susceptible to allergies, as am I, but she has it much worse than I do. But going through, listening to the research that was done, I found something very interesting from California. Most of this stuff is out west and in California. The city of Sacramento was banning the artificial grass on front lawns and on the side of houses. They went through a process where I have the documentation here if you'd like to, if you're interested, I can. And in fact, I made packets up of all the information that I garnered. But this goes through, going through the process of possibly changing their existing ordinance. So I have the work through of the process, I have their old ordinance, and then I have a red line version of the final ordinance that was adopted, in which they did accept good quality.
The Planning Commission study?
I'm sorry?
The Sacramento Planning Commission
Yeah,
study?
yeah.
It's very useful.
Yeah,
it was good.
Thank you, sir, that's your 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's okay.
No worries. And real fast, this is your year-round house, or do you have another house?
Year-round.
This is?
Year-round.
This is your 13th Avenue?
I'm sorry?
Your house on 13th Avenue is
Yes.
year-round?
Okay,
Yeah, great.
Would you like me to drop these?
If you don't mind, just leave it on front of the clerk.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, appreciate your time. Just a show of hands, who's here on AstroTurf?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Artificial.
Sorry.
Artificial.
There's not even an AstroTurf. Right, Astro. All right, sorry, just curious. Any other comments, questions for the council? If not, we're hitting the 8 o'clock hour. I'll make a motion to close the public portion and adjourn our meeting.
Second.
Aye.